What happens when a song meant to heal becomes the reason for exile, and a lawman's life saved by forbidden hands changes the fate of two people forever? Let us know in the comments what part of the world you're watching from. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as I lay bleeding in Devil's Canyon. Sheriff Thomas McKenzie, they called me. Until Jake Morrison's gang left me for dead 3 hours ago. The ambush had been perfect. 6 men materialized from the red rocks, rifles trained on me from every angle. Morrison stepped into view, his black beard framing a cold smile. "Nothing personal, Sheriff," he'd said, "but you've been getting too close." 3 bullets found their mark: shoulder, chest, side. Each shot spun me before depositing me in the dust. As consciousness faded, I heard Morrison's final words, "Leave him for the buzzards." Now I lay dying in the desert heat. My thoughts drifted to Copper Ridge, the town I'd served for 3 years. Deputy Billy Carson would be wondering why I hadn't returned. Doc Hayes would be tending patients, unaware their sheriff was bleeding out. They'd be better off without me. I'd let Morrison slip through my fingers too many times. That's when I heard it, singing, a haunting melody that seemed to rise from the stones themselves, rising and falling like wind through the canyon. The language was unfamiliar, but the emotion was universal. Sorrow mixed with hope. I tried to turn toward the sound, but movement sent waves of agony through my broken body. The singing grew closer, and I caught glimpses of movement. "Do not move," came a soft voice, speaking English with an Apache accent. "You are badly hurt." The figure knelt beside me, and I found myself looking into the most beautiful face I'd ever seen. She was young, perhaps 25, with skin like burnished copper and eyes dark as night. Her black hair hung in 2 long braids adorned with feathers and beads. She wore traditional Apache clothing, a buckskin dress decorated with intricate beadwork. "Who are you?" I whispered. "I am Aiyana," she replied, her hands examining my wounds. "It means eternal blossom. But my people call me Singing Wind for the gift the spirits gave me." "Gift?" "The gift of healing through song, the old ways passed down from my grandmother." Her touch was gentle but sure. "You are Sheriff McKenzie. I have seen you in Copper Ridge." I nodded weakly, surprised she knew who I was. Relations between Apache and white settlers were tense at best. "Why are you helping me?" She paused, her dark eyes meeting mine. "Because all life is sacred, Sheriff. The spirits do not distinguish between Apache and white man when it comes to suffering." She began to sing again, the same haunting melody. But now, being close, I could feel something else, warmth that seemed to flow from her voice into my broken body. It was unlike anything I'd experienced, as if the very sound was healing my wounds. "The bullets must come out," she said, pausing her song. "This will hurt, but you must trust me." I managed a slight nod. She reached into a leather pouch and withdrew a small knife with a bone handle. The pain was excruciating as she worked, but every time I felt myself slipping toward darkness, her voice would pull me back, the healing song wrapping around me like protection. "The spirits are with you," she whispered as she worked. "They have shown me that your thread in the great tapestry is not yet finished." Time seemed to move differently in that canyon, as if her voice had the power to slow the very passage of the sun. When she finally finished, I felt weak, but somehow more whole than I had in years. "I must take you to safety," Aiyana said, gathering her supplies. "The canyon is dangerous after dark. Your people won't welcome a white lawman." My people need not know," she replied, though I caught concern in her eyes. "There is a hidden cave where I gather healing plants. You will be safe there." She helped me to my feet, and I was amazed I could actually stand. The bullets were gone, wounds cleaned and bandaged. While still weak from blood loss, I felt like I might survive. "How did you find me?" I asked as she supported me toward a narrow path. "I was gathering sacred herbs when I heard gunshots. The spirits guided me to you. They spoke in the wind, told me a good man was dying and that I must help him." "How do you know I'm a good man?" She paused, looking at me with those penetrating eyes. Because you asked. A bad man would simply take what was offered. A good man worries about whether he deserves it. The hidden cave was larger than expected, with a natural chimney for a small fire. Aiyana had obviously used it before. Dried herbs hung from the ceiling, clay pots held water, and Apache blankets covered the floor. "Rest now," she said, helping me lie down on soft furs. "I will make medicine tea, then sing healing songs through the night." "You don't have to do that. The healing is not complete," she said firmly. "The bullets are gone, but your spirit is still wounded. That takes longer to heal." As she prepared tea, I studied her face in the firelight. There was something beyond mere beauty, a strength and wisdom that seemed older than her years. She moved with confidence, understanding her purpose. "Aiyana, why do you really help me?" "The truth." She stopped stirring and looked at me for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because in my dreams, I have seen a time when Apache and white man will no longer be enemies, when they will stand together against darkness that threatens both peoples. The spirits have shown me that you have a part to play in that future. I'm just a lawman trying to keep peace, and I am just a woman who sings to heal, but the spirits work through humble vessels." She handed me the tea, pleasantly earthy, immediately bringing warm drowsiness to my limbs. "Sleep now," she said, settling beside the fire. "I will watch over you." As I drifted towards sleep, I heard her begin singing again. Different this time. Softer, more intimate, like a lullaby speaking of home and safety. In my dreams, I found myself in a place where the harsh divisions of the frontier didn't exist, where Apache and white could stand together. When I woke the next morning, I felt stronger than I had in months. The wounds were still tender, but healing with remarkable speed. Aiyana sat cross-legged by the fire, grinding something in a stone mortar. "How do you feel?" she asked, smiling. "Like I've been given a second chance at life. How can I repay you?" "Use this second chance wisely. The spirits have invested much in your recovery. Do not waste their gift." "I won't," I promised, meaning it. Something fundamental had changed during that night. The cynicism growing in my heart, the weariness that made me question whether law really mattered, had been burned away by her songs and replaced with hope. We spent the day talking, sharing stories of our different worlds. I told her about growing up in Missouri, about my father, who'd been a circuit judge, about events that brought me west. She told me about her childhood in Apache camps, about learning healing arts from her grandmother, about dreams and visions that guided her path. "My grandmother said the spirits speak loudest to those who know how to listen," she said, as we shared cornbread and dried meat. "But listening requires silence, and silence is difficult for most people." "Is that why you were alone in the canyon?" "Among other things. My gift sometimes sets me apart. They respect the healing songs, but also fear them. Fear what they don't understand." "What don't they understand?" She stared into the fire. "They don't understand that spirits care nothing for skin color or language spoken. They see only that healing power should be used for Apache, not enemies." "But you don't see me as an enemy." "No. I see a man who tries to do right in a world that makes it difficult to know what right is. Someone who could be a bridge between our peoples." As the sun began setting on my second day, I knew I had to decide. I was strong enough to return to Copper Ridge and resume duties as sheriff, but that meant leaving Aiyana behind, returning to a world where Apache and white were enemies. "I have to go back," I said finally. "My people will be worried." "I know, it is your duty. But what about us? What about this?" I gestured between us. "There is no us in the world beyond this cave. You are Sheriff McKenzie, protector of white settlers. I am Aiyana, daughter of Apache. That is how it must be." "But that's not how it has to be." "Yes, it is." Her voice was firm, but I saw pain in her eyes. "You cannot change the world, Thomas McKenzie. One man who was given a second chance by an extraordinary woman. One man who has seen what's possible when people choose understanding over fear. She walked to the cave mouth, looking out at endless desert. You do not understand the forces at work. The hatred runs deeper than you know. On both sides. Then teach me, help me understand. She turned back, looking truly vulnerable for the first time. If I am seen helping you, if my people discover what I have done, I will be cast out, banished. I will have no place in either world. And if you don't help, if we go back to how things were, how many more will die? How many more Thomas McKenzies will bleed out in the desert? She was quiet for a long moment. Internal battle fought in her expressive eyes. Finally, she spoke. There is truth in what you say, but the path you speak of is dangerous for both of us. I know, but some things are worth the risk. She nodded slowly. Then we must be very careful and very wise. Udal, Chapter 2. 3 days after returning to Copper Ridge, I stood in my office watching morning sun cast shadows across the dusty main street. On the surface, everything appeared normal, but something fundamental had changed. Deputy Billy Carson knocked, his young face creased with concern. "Sheriff, you sure you're up for this? Doc Hayes said you should rest another week." "I'm fine, Billy," I replied, though the truth was more complicated. Physically, I was healing with remarkable speed thanks to Aiyana's medicine. Emotionally, I struggled with the weight of what I'd experienced. The whole town's talking about how you survived out there. 3 days alone in the desert with those wounds. Some folks are calling it a miracle. If only they knew. Sometimes a man gets lucky. Lucky don't cover it, Sheriff. When I found your horse wandering back without you, I figured... He trailed off. "Well, I'm here now. What's Morrison's situation?" Billy's expression grew grim. "Hit the bank in Tucson. Killed 2 people, including a woman making a deposit. Territorial governors offering a $1,000 reward." I felt familiar anger rising, tempered now by deeper understanding of violence cycles plaguing this territory. "Any word on where he's headed?" "Rumors say he's planning to hit the silver shipment from Broken Arrow Mine next Tuesday. 5 days to prepare. Double the guard. At least 6 men riding escort." "Sheriff, about that." Billy hesitated. "There's been talk. Some men are wondering if what happened out there changed you somehow." "Changed me how?" "Made you soft. Like maybe you're not ready for another confrontation with Morrison." I turned to face my deputy, seeing genuine concern. Billy Carson was a good man, barely 25, but showing steady nerves that made for a good lawman. "I'm not the same man who rode out after Morrison 3 days ago. What happened in that desert taught me things about myself, about this territory, that I hadn't understood before. But soft? No, Billy. If anything, I'm more determined than ever. But different how?" I thought about Aiyana's words, about the vision she'd shared. Different in understanding that the real enemy isn't who we might think. The real enemy is hatred and fear that keeps good people from working together. Billy looked confused, but before he could ask for clarification, the office door burst open. Mayor Jonathan Reed strode in, face flushed with anger and fear. "McKenzie, we need to talk, now." "Good morning, Mayor. What's got you stirred up?" "What's got me stirred up is the report from Captain Thornfield at Fort Apache. He says there's been increased Apache activity, and he's demanding to know why we haven't been keeping him informed." I felt cold dread settling in my stomach. "What kind of activity?" "Scouting parties, riders moving through territory at night, and rumors about Apache using some kind of new medicine to heal warriors who should have died from wounds." The dread deepened. Somehow, word of my miraculous recovery had reached the military, and they were drawing dangerous conclusions. Rumors have a way of growing in the telling. That's easy for you to say. You weren't the one explaining to Captain Thornfield why the sheriff of Copper Ridge was found alive after being shot 3 times. I was lucky, managed to crawl to shelter and tend my wounds. "Lucky?" Reed's voice rose. "McKenzie, I've known you 3 years. You're a good sheriff, but no medicine man. Those wounds should have killed you. But they didn't. And now I'm here, ready to do my job." Reed studied my face. "Captain Thornfield wants to see you today. He has questions. What kind of questions? The kind that could mean the difference between peace and war in this territory. There are settlers calling for preemptive strikes against Apache camps. If Thornfield decides the Apache have developed some new form of warfare, he didn't need to finish. I knew what would happen. The fragile peace between Apache and white settlers would shatter. I'll ride out to Fort Apache this afternoon. Good. And McKenzie? Be very careful what you say. A lot of lives could depend on it. After Reed left, I sat alone, staring at the map on my wall. Red pins marking Apache territories seemed to mock me, reminding me of the impossible situation I faced. If I told the truth about Aiyana's healing, I'd be putting her and her people at risk. If I lied, I might be contributing to a war. I was still wrestling with the dilemma when Doc Hayes knocked. Samuel Hayes was a thin, scholarly man in his 50s who'd given up comfortable Boston practice to bring medicine to the frontier. "Tom, I need to examine those wounds. The whole town's talking about your miraculous recovery." I couldn't refuse without raising suspicion, so I unbuttoned my shirt and let him examine the healing bullet wounds. His reaction was everything I'd feared. "Good God," he whispered, running fingers over the scars. "These wounds are healing faster than anything I've ever seen. The tissue regeneration is remarkable. I heal fast. No one heals this fast. Not from wounds like these." He looked up with sharp eyes. "Tom, what really happened out there?" I met his gaze steadily. "I was shot by Morrison's gang and left for dead. I managed to survive. That's not all. These wounds have been treated with something I've never seen. The scarring pattern, the way tissue has knitted together. This isn't natural healing." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting someone helped you. Someone with medical knowledge beyond anything I learned in medical school. Someone who knows healing techniques used in this territory for centuries." "Doc, I think you're letting your imagination run away." "Am I?" "Tom, I've been practicing medicine 25 years. I've seen men die from wounds less severe than yours. I've also seen what Apache medicine can do when properly applied." "What would you know about Apache medicine?" "More than you might think. I've treated Apache prisoners brought to the fort. I've seen healing techniques that would be considered miraculous by Eastern standards, herbs that accelerate healing, songs that seem to ease pain in ways that defy explanation." My heart was pounding. "That's interesting, but I'm not sure what it has to do with my situation." "It has everything to do with your situation if you were treated by someone with that knowledge." Doc Hayes leaned forward. "Tom, Captain Thornfield isn't just concerned about Apache military activity. He's been ordered to investigate reports of Apache medicine being used to heal white settlers. The Army is worried about implications." "What implications?" "Think about it. If Apache medicine is powerful enough to heal wounds that should be fatal, what else might it be capable of? What other advantages might it give them in conflict?" I felt sick. The very thing that saved my life was now being seen as a potential weapon of war. After Doc Hayes left, I sat feeling the weight of impossible choices. Every option seemed to lead to disaster. I was still wrestling when Billy returned with news that made everything worse. "Sheriff, there's been a development. A patrol from Fort Apache found signs of struggle at Devil's Canyon. They're saying it looks like someone was dragged away from where you were shot." I knew what they'd collected. Me. But any investigation would eventually lead to questions about how I survived, and those questions would lead to Aiyana. I need to ride out to the canyon. I want to see these signs myself. "Sheriff, Captain Thornfield specifically ordered that no one disturb the site. This is still my jurisdiction, Billy." The ride to Devil's Canyon took me through territory I now saw with different eyes. Before meeting Aiyana, this had been simply empty desert. Now I could see it as she'd taught me, as a living thing, full of hidden water sources and medicinal plants. When I reached the canyon, I found the scene much as I'd left it. Rocks where I'd taken cover were still stained with my blood. But there were other signs too, carefully hidden footprints, faint traces of herbs scattered to mask scent. Subtle alterations, speaking of someone who knew how to move through desert without leaving obvious tracks. Aiyana had been careful, but not careful enough to fool army trackers. I was examining the site when I heard approaching horses. Captain Marcus Thornfield rode into the canyon with 6 soldiers, their blue uniforms stark against red rocks. "Sheriff McKenzie?" Thornfield called out as he dismounted. "I thought I made it clear this site was not to be disturbed." "This is still civilian territory, Captain. I have a right to investigate crimes in my jurisdiction." Thornfield was a tall, lean man in his 40s, with military bearing that spoke of years of frontier service. His eyes were hard and calculating. "This is no longer just a civilian matter. This is a matter of territorial security." "How so?" "Because, Sheriff, someone removed you from this site. Someone with knowledge and skill to heal wounds that should have been fatal. Someone who wanted to keep you alive for reasons we don't yet understand. I wasn't removed from anywhere. I managed to crawl to shelter." "Don't insult my intelligence, McKenzie. I've been tracking Apache for 15 years. I know their sign. Someone came here after you were shot. Someone carefully covered their tracks, but not carefully enough. I felt the trap closing around me, and by extension, around Aiyana. Even if that were true, what would it matter? It matters because the Apache don't help white men out of kindness. If they saved your life, they want something in return, and I need to know what that something is." "You're assuming facts not in evidence, Captain." "Am I?" Thornfield walked to a patch of disturbed ground. "This is where someone knelt beside you for an extended period. The depth of impression suggests it was a woman, probably young, probably skilled in Apache medicine." My blood ran cold. Thornfield was reconstructing the scene with frightening accuracy. "The question is," he continued, "what did she want in return for saving your life? What did you promise her, Sheriff?" "I didn't promise anyone anything, because no one saved my life except my own stubborn refusal to die." "Then you won't mind if I post guards around your office? If I have my men watch for any unusual visitors?" I realized I was trapped. If I protested too strongly, it would only confirm his suspicions. If I didn't, Aiyana would be walking into a trap. "Do whatever you think is necessary, Captain. I understand that preventing another Apache war is more important than popularity contests." As Thornfield prepared to leave, I made a decision. I couldn't let Aiyana walk into a trap, but I also couldn't openly warn her without confirming suspicions. The sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in shades that reminded me of firelight in Aiyana's hidden cave. Somewhere out there, she was continuing her life, unaware that her act of compassion had set in motion events that would soon threaten everything she held dear. The woman who had sung me back to life was about to face the consequences of her mercy, and I was the only one who could stand between her and destruction. Chapter 3. The Apache drums began at midnight, their deep rhythm echoing across the desert like the earth's heartbeat. I stood on my office porch, listening to the sound that meant only one thing. The tribe was gathering for a council of judgment. 2 days had passed since my encounter with Captain Thornfield. I'd been desperately trying to warn Aiyana without confirming military suspicions, but as I listened to those drums, I realized with growing horror that I might already be too late. "Sheriff." Billy Carson emerged behind me, face pale with worry. "Those drums, they've been going for an hour. The whole town's on edge." "I know. Get the men ready." Before he could respond, the sound of approaching horses reached us. A single rider was coming hard from the Apache reservation, pushing his mount to its limits. As he drew closer, I recognized the horse. It was Aiyana's. But the rider was not Aiyana. The man who dismounted was young, perhaps 20, with the lean build of an Apache warrior. His face was streaked with paint, and his dark eyes burned with anger and desperation. "You are Sheriff McKenzie," he said, his English heavily accented. "I am Joseph, nephew to Aiyana. I come with message." "What message?" "My aunt is in great danger. The tribal council has learned of her actions. They have called for her to be judged for helping the white enemy. I felt blood drain from my face. Where is she now? Hidden, but not for long. The warriors are searching. When they find her, he made a gesture across his throat. But there is chance. The council has agreed to hear her defense if she can prove what she did was not betrayal. What kind of proof? You must come. You must speak for her. Tell the council that she saved you not to help the white man's war, but because the spirits commanded it. I stared at him, understanding the impossibility. Joseph, if I go to your reservation, Captain Thornfield will see it as proof I'm collaborating with the Apache. It could start a war. If you do not come, my aunt will die, and her death will start a war anyway, because the warriors will say white men cannot be trusted, that mercy is weakness. Billy stepped forward, hand resting on his gun. Sheriff, this could be a trap. Joseph's eyes flashed. You think I would risk my life riding here if this was not real? You think I would come to the town of my enemies if my aunt was not facing death? I studied the young man's face, seeing genuine fear and desperation. This was no trick. Aiyana was really in danger, and I was the only one who could save her. Billy, I need you to take charge while I'm gone. Sheriff, you can't seriously be considering this. It's suicide. Maybe, but I owe that woman my life. If she's in danger because she saved me, then I have a duty to help her. The army will never understand. Captain Thornfield will see this as confirmation you've been working with the Apache. Then I'll deal with that when I get back. I gathered my weapons and supplies, mind racing. Joseph was right. If Aiyana died because of her kindness to me, it would indeed start a war. There's something else, Joseph said, as I prepared to leave. The council has heard rumors about the bluecoats asking questions. They know the army is looking for my aunt. If she is found by soldiers instead of warriors, it will be seen as even greater betrayal. What do you mean? If the army captures her, the council will assume she is giving them information about Apache defenses, about our medicine, about our plans. They will declare her dead to the tribe. The situation was even worse than I'd thought. Not only was Aiyana in danger from her own people, but if Thornfield found her first, she'd be caught between two forces that would both see her as a traitor. How long do we have? Maybe until dawn. The council will meet when the sun rises. I finished gathering supplies and turned to Billy. If I'm not back by tomorrow night, send word to the territorial governor. Tell him what happened, and tell him I take full responsibility. Sheriff, please don't do this. Sometimes a man has to choose between his duty and his conscience. Joseph and I rode out into the desert night, following trails only he knew. The drums continued their ominous beating, growing louder as we approached the Apache reservation. Above us, stars shone with clarity that seemed to mock human complexity. Tell me about the council, I said as we rode. What exactly will they want to hear? They will want to know why Aiyana helped you. They will want to know if she told you anything about our people, our defenses. They will want to know if you made promises to her. And what should I tell them? The truth, that she saved you because her gift compelled her to heal, not because she sought to help the white man's war, that she asked for nothing in return. Will they believe that? Joseph was quiet for a moment. Some will. My aunt is respected for her healing gifts. But others will say that any help given to a white lawman is betrayal, no matter the reason. We rode in silence for a while, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on us. Finally, Joseph spoke again. My aunt spoke of you when she returned from the canyon. She said you were different from other white men she had known. Different how? She said you asked questions instead of making demands. She said you listened when she spoke. She said you saw her as a person, not just as an Apache. She is a person, a remarkable person who saved my life. As we approached the reservation, I could see the glow of fires in the distance. The entire tribe had gathered, and the drums were now joined by chanting voices. What happens when we arrive? I asked. You will be brought before the council. They will ask you questions. Answer honestly, but remember that every word will be weighed. One wrong answer could mean death for both of you. We crested a hill, and the full scope of the Apache gathering became visible. Hundreds of people had assembled around a central fire, their faces painted for ceremony. Warriors stood in formation, weapons ready. Elders sat in a circle, their weathered faces grave. "Sheriff," Joseph said as we approached the perimeter, "once we enter this circle, you are no longer protected by white man's law. You are subject to Apache justice. If the council decides you are a threat, they will kill you." "I understand. Do you? This is not like your courtrooms. This is ancient law, the law of the desert. There is no mercy for enemies." I thought about Aiyana's words about bridging the gap between our peoples, about the vision she'd shared of Apache and white standing together. If there was any hope of that vision becoming reality, it would have to begin with acts of courage. "I understand. Let's go." Zatudi. The warriors who met us at the perimeter allowed us to pass, forming an escort that guided us toward the central fire. As we walked through the crowd, I felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon me. Some showed curiosity, others hostility, a few something that might have been respect, but all were watching, waiting to see what the white sheriff would do when faced with Apache justice. The council circle was dominated by an elderly man whose presence commanded attention. This was Chief Running Wolf, the leader of the tribe, a man whose reputation for wisdom was known throughout the territory. "You are Sheriff McKenzie," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite his age. "You come to our fire uninvited, at a time when our people are deciding the fate of one who has broken our laws." "I come because I have information that may be relevant to your decision," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Information about Aiyana, called Singing Wind, who stands accused of giving aid to the enemies of our people." "Yes. And what information do you offer?" I took a deep breath, knowing my next words would determine not only Aiyana's fate, but possibly the future of relations between our peoples. "I offer the truth about what happened in Devil's Canyon, the truth about why she helped me, and what I offered her in return." "Speak this truth." 3 days ago I was ambushed by white outlaws, men who are enemies to both our peoples. They left me for dead in the desert. Your daughter found me dying and chose to save my life, not because she wanted to help the white man's war, but because her gift compelled her to heal those who suffer. A murmur ran through the crowd, and I saw some hostile faces begin to soften, but Chief Running Wolf's expression remained stern. "And what did you give her in return for this healing?" "Nothing. She asked for nothing, and I gave her nothing except my gratitude and my word that I would not forget her kindness." "Your word as a white man?" "My word as a man who recognizes honor when he sees it." The chief was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Finally, he spoke again. "You risk much by coming here, Sheriff McKenzie. You risk your life, your position, your standing among your own people. Why? Because the woman who saved my life is in danger, and I could not live with myself if I did nothing to help her. Even though helping her confirms that you have been compromised by Apache influence?" I realized the chief knew exactly what my presence here would mean in the white world. He was testing me, seeing if I was willing to sacrifice everything for the woman who had saved me. Yes, even though it confirms that. Some things are more important than position or reputation. What things? Honor, gratitude, the debt one human being owes to another when they have been shown mercy. As if on cue, a commotion arose at the edge of the circle. Warriors were escorting someone toward the fire, and I felt my heart skip a beat as I recognized Aiyana's graceful form. She walked with dignity despite the circumstances, her head held high, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. When our gazes met, I saw relief mixed with fear, hope tempered by knowledge of what we were both facing. "Aiyana, called Singing Wind," Chief Running Wolf said, "you stand accused of giving aid to the enemies of our people. How do you answer?" "I answer that I gave aid to a dying man because the spirits commanded it," she replied, her voice clear and strong. "I answer that healing is not betrayal, and mercy is not weakness. Chief Running Wolf looked back and forth between us, his weathered face revealing nothing. Finally he spoke. Sheriff McKenzie, you have heard the charges against this woman. You have heard her defense. What do you say? I say that she is guilty of nothing, except having a heart large enough to show mercy to an enemy. I say that in saving my life, she showed me that the divisions between our peoples are not as deep as the hatred that men create. And if this council decides that her actions were betrayal, if we decide that mercy shown to enemies is weakness that endangers our people, then I will ask to share her punishment, because if showing mercy is a crime, then I am as guilty as she is. The words hung in the air like smoke from the sacred fire. I had not planned to say them, but once spoken, I knew they were true. Chief Running Wolf stood slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. You would share the punishment of exile? You would leave your people, your position, your life in the white world, to stand with a woman who is no longer welcome among the Apache? I would. Why? Because she showed me that there is another way. A way that doesn't require Apache and white to be enemies. A way that honors the best in both our peoples. The chief was quiet for a long moment, weighing not just my words, but their implications for his people's future. Finally, he spoke. The council will deliberate. It was then that I saw them, Captain Thornfield and a squad of soldiers, positioned at the edge of the gathering. They had been watching the entire proceeding. Sheriff McKenzie, Thornfield called out, his voice carrying clearly across the circle. You are under arrest for collaborating with hostile Indians and compromising territorial security. Captain, I'm afraid you have no authority here, Chief Running Wolf said calmly. The sheriff is under the protection of Apache law until our deliberations are complete. Apache law has no authority over United States citizens. In this place, at this time, it does. I saw Thornfield's hand move to his weapon, and I knew we were balanced on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, and the fragile peace would shatter into violence. The council has decided, Chief Running Wolf announced. Aiyana, called Singing Wind, acted not from betrayal, but from the sacred duty to heal. She will not be punished for saving a life. I felt relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. However, her actions have created division among our people. Some see mercy, others see weakness. She cannot remain among us while this division exists. What does that mean? I asked. It means she is exiled, not as punishment, but as necessity. She must leave our lands and not return. I looked at Aiyana, seeing the pain in her eyes as she heard her fate pronounced. She had saved my life, and now she was losing everything. And you, Sheriff McKenzie, the chief continued, you have shown honor in coming here. But you have also shown that you are no longer the man you were before Aiyana's healing. You are changed, and that change makes you dangerous to both our peoples. What happens now? I asked. Now you choose. You can return to your people and try to forget what has happened here. Or you can choose exile with the woman who saved your life. You can leave both our worlds behind and create something new. The choice was laid out before me with crystalline clarity. I could return to Copper Ridge, face Captain Thornfield's questions, and try to rebuild my life as sheriff, but I would always carry the knowledge of what I had experienced. Or I could choose to build something new with Aiyana, something that belonged to neither world but honored both. I looked at her across the circle, seeing the same choice reflected in her eyes. She had already lost everything for the sake of showing mercy to an enemy. I choose exile, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent gathering. I choose to stand with Aiyana, to build something new with her, something that honors both our peoples. Captain Thornfield stepped forward, his face dark with anger. Mackenzie, you're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life. Maybe, I said, unbuckling my gun belt and setting it aside. But I'd rather make a mistake following my conscience than succeed by betraying it. I walked across the circle to where Aiyana stood, taking her hand in mine. Her fingers were warm and strong, and I felt the same connection I had experienced in the hidden cave. You are both free to go, Chief Running Wolf said solemnly. but know that you can never return to the lives you have left behind. You are citizens of no nation now, belonging to no people but each other. As we walked away from the fire, away from the gathered Apache, away from Thornfield's angry shouts, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had lost my badge, my position, my place in the white world, but I had gained something more valuable. "Where will we go?" Aiyana asked as we walked into the desert darkness. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll figure it out together." "Are you afraid?" I thought about the question, considering the enormity of what we were walking away from and walking toward. "No," I said finally. "For the first time in years, I'm not afraid." Above us, the stars shone with the same clarity they had always shone, indifferent to human struggles below, but tonight they seemed to shine with promise, the promise of a new beginning. Behind us, the Apache drums continued their ancient rhythm, and ahead of us lay the unknown desert, vast and full of possibilities. We walked toward it together, two exiles who had found in each other the strength to choose love over fear, understanding over hatred. The woman who had sung me back to life was now singing us both toward a future that belonged to neither of our worlds, but to both of our hearts. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this story of healing, sacrifice, and choosing love over duty. Did you enjoy how Tom and Aiyana found strength in each other despite losing everything? Don't forget to subscribe for more epic Western tales.